Hare Krishna. So today being the Transcendental Disappearance Day of Srila Vamsidas Babaji, I was inspired by the assembled devotees to chant this bhajan, the Sri Vamsidasa Smarane, in remembrance of Srila Vamsidas Babaji. So I think Mahotsa Prabhu has it, but in the meantime, while he's pulling it up, I can read the translation here. Srila Vamsidas Babaji is a gem of transcendental qualities, the crushed jewel of Avadutas, and an associate of Gaurasundar. By constantly serving the lotus feet of Bhakti Devi, who is spotless, being free of all contaminations such as Gyan and Yoga, Vamsidas rendered the position of Gyan and Yoga insufficient. Taking the name Bhairab Chandra, he was born in 1859 in Majidpur, Kishoreganj, East Bengal, and vastly removed the troubles of his family members. Vamsidas's father was named Sanatana, and his mother was named Sarva Sundari. His family guru named him. Narottam Das Babaji of Nigoja fulfilled his desire by awarding him Diksha. Krishna Chandra was his savior. After wandering about the holy places, Vamsidas came to Navadvip. There, near Raniganj, he served Lord Nityananda and Gadadhar Pandit. There he attained his Siddhadeha, in which were manifest transformations of transcendental ecstasy, and thus served the Lord at the topmost level of pure devotional service. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur were very pleased with Vamsidas Babaji. Through their association, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur fulfilled his desire to see Vamsidas Babaji, and thereupon became filled with love for Lord Chaitanya. Vamsidas went to Vrindavan and wandered there in the forest groves. Then he returned to Navadvip, visiting holy places along the way. After exhibiting pastimes in Navadvip for some time, he went on the path to Nilachala, carrying his deity Sri Gopal. There the sea became fortunate by bathing Gopal. After seeing Lord Jagannath's Rathayatra cart, Vamsidas left Puri, wandering here and there and resting under a banyan tree. I now write and print the pastimes of Vamsidas. On the bank of the Vaitarini river, on the full moon night, in the autumn season, many celestial women came to see Vamsidas. Vamsidas would not speak with anyone, always looking at Gopal. He would talk only with him. Having previously visited Gaya and Varanasi in 1944, Vamsidas returned to the place his guru left this world to go back to Lord Chaitanya. He departed on the fourth day of the bright fortnight of the month of Shravana. The Tirobhavatiti of Vamsidas was on the anniversary of the Tirobhavatiti of Srila Raghunananda Thakur. There was a great gathering that day. Bhakti Kumuda Jati Shekhar Prabhu happily spent 3 months with Vamsidas. He says, now without you, I'm simply crying. We'll see what happens. Avaduta Chudamani Vamsidasa Gunamani Avaduta Chudamani Vamsidasa Gunamani Shri Gora Sundara Parisada Vimala Bhakati Devi Shri Charana Sada Sevi Tu Chakale Jogi Gyani Par Atarasa Anasati Puruba Banga Deshati Kishora Ganja Majidapur Shri Bhairava Chandra Name Jan Mile Se Dhame Parijana Keda Kale Dura Sanatana Hela Pita Sarva Sundari Jai Mata Kalika Guru Shri Nama Data Nigoyai Narottama Kale Tanko Dika Kama Narottama Nigyanai Narottama Kale Tanko Dika Kama Krishna Chandra Kere Trata Pata Tirtha Bhuli Navadvipe Ranga Ganjara Samipe Nitai Gadai Kale Seva Siddha Deha Labha Kari Satvika Bhikara Dahari Mahabhava Seva Kale Jeba Thakura Bhakti Vinod Vamsidase Ati Mod Shri Jagannatha Gora Kishora Tanko Sange Prabhupada Vamside Ke Pure Sadha Gora Preme Hele Je Vibhor Vrindavana Dhame Jai Kunje Kunje Bulutai Navadvipe Ase Tirtha Kari Tahi Lila Kari Kete Gale Nila Chala Pate Shri Gopala Thakur Ankudhari Mahodati Hela Danya Shri Gopala Kale Snana Jagannatha Ratha Yatra Dekhi Chali Chali Pleturanti Batamudare Rahanti Chapiyachi Tanko Lila Leki Vaitarani Nadi Tire Shri Sarata Punire Kete Devi Ase Darshane Kaha Saha Kata Nahi Sada Gopale Anai kahutanti kata tanko sane. Gaya kasi tirtatile, guru pite pahunchile. Unai sha charulali sha sale. Hera Prabhu aprakata, gale gora sannikata. Shravana Shukla Chaturi Kale. Raghunandana Thakura Shitiro Bhavatirtira. Samavesha Hela Sehi Din. Bhakati Kumudarange Dini Masatila Sange. Ebe kandu achituma bine. Ebe kandu achituma bine. Shri Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Vanshakaupa Tarubhyascha. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajak Acharya Shotara Sata Shri Shrimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajak Acharya Shotara Sata Shri Shrimad. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shama Kunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Raghuvananda Thakur ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glorious to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glorious to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glorious to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Desha Tarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tapas Prabhu, could you pass me my phone? It's on that cushion over there. So today, we will be having the good fortune of celebrating the ecstatic disappearance day of two great Vaishnavas, two great devotees, and two intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya. First, I'll speak on, let me see for 1 second. I just don't want to pronounce his name wrong. My Sanskrit pronunciation is really bad. Of Sri Raghuvananda Thakur's disappearance. And I don't really know so much about Sri Raghuvananda Thakur, but one pastime that is very famous, and we recite and we talk about a good amount, is the certain relationship that he had with his Gopinath, Didi, where from a young age he was told by his father, Mukunda Das, to offer foodstuffs to this Didi, to this Gopinath Didi. And out of such love and out of such personal relationship for the Didi, he would put the food, the boga, in front of the Didi, and he would ask the Didi, eat, and he would not leave until the Didi had finished all the offering that he had brought before him. So when he brought the offering plate, or the plate that he presented before the Gopinath Didi, back to his father, the father would ask him for the prasadam, for the remnants, and Raghuvananda Thakur would say, Gopinath ate it all. There isn't any left. And Mukunda Das, his father, was very bewildered by this. He didn't exactly understand fully what was going on. In fact, he thought that his son was somehow or other taking this offering before he could bring it back to him. So then he sent him to go do the offering again. And again, the same thing happened, where the offering came back and the plate was empty. So then he was really, really confused, because for something to happen once, it's like, okay, maybe like something strange happened. But for it to happen back to back, it was pretty astonishing for him. So then right after this, he had Raghuvananda Thakur offer this laddu to his Gopinath Didi. And he watched and he observed, and he saw the Gopinath Didi actually eating this laddu, and he only honored half of it, because since he had just made an offering, the Didi was already full. So he took half of this laddu, and then the devotees were able to share this as the prasadam. But it's a very amazing and astonishing thing that this devotee had so much love for his Didi and so much love for Gopinath that the Didi reciprocated with him and actually honored the offering that he had put before him. Generally, for us, when we put our offerings before the Lord, this doesn't happen, right? But we can see someone on such a high level and someone as advanced as Sri Raghuvananda Thakur was able to do this and was able to have this happen. So that's pretty much the main pastime that I know. I'm not really qualified to speak on these topics, but I'll try my best. And the other Vaishnav, the other great devotee who has his disappearance day today, is Sri Vamsidas Babaji, who we just sung a song about in the very beginning. And Vamsidas Babaji was a very how do I say this? People often misunderstood his actions. People often misunderstood his character because he was acting on the complete platform of spontaneous love for the Lord. So just like anybody else, he appeared in a family of fishermen, and just based off of that situation, people who are generally born in that situation, that's something they'll be doing for the rest of their lives. So his father, he was training him up in this profession. He was training him up. They were going out every single day and they were catching fish from the river. But often, Srila Vamsidas Babaji, he would go to the local temple of Lord Chaitanya, and he would hear the devotees at the temple talk about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And oftentimes they would recite the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and they would teach about the mood of the devotees that Lord Chaitanya had, and about the different pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after hearing from these devotees at the temple, and after hearing about all these pastimes, Vamsidas Babaji's family members could see that he was becoming detached from the material world. So, when one becomes detached and when a family member doesn't want that, naturally they push for the child to get married. So that is also what was done in the case of Vamsidas Babaji, where his parents, they pushed him to get married, and they married him to a beautiful young woman, and he actually had a child after his marriage to this woman. But his heart wasn't there because it was always with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So just after a short time in his married life, he just got up and left. As we see with a lot of exalted personalities, that when they become in a situation of detachment, they often just get up and leave their family situation, just renouncing it here and there. And after this, Vamsidas Babaji, he traveled and he went to Navadvip. And there is where he resided for most of his life and where he engaged in most of his transcendental pastimes. Couple things just about Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj is that he was a very tall personality. It's said that there's only 2 pictures of Vamsidas Babaji, and they're in this amazing book by my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, in this book titled Sri Vamsidas Babaji, where anybody who wants to read in depth, and I would highly recommend you do so, can go through this book and they can read about all the wonderful pastimes of Srila Vamsidas Babaji. But the first picture that we have, I don't know if people can see so well, of Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj here, it said that he was a little over 6 feet tall. So most people in India, not to be like stereotypical, but they aren't very tall. So for someone like Srila Vamsidas Babaji walking around at such a tall stature, it was very amazing to see, actually. Here's another picture. This one's not so easy to see. But you can see how tall this personality is. And one thing that was very important in Vamsidas Babaji's life was the relationship that he had with his deities. And his deities are shown here also in this book. And this deity worship of his was the main part of his service. Of course, as a Babaji, he would sit and he would perform bhajan, often sitting in one place. But his main service and the main way he showed his devotion was in serving his deities. And he had a very personal relationship with his deities. He had deities of Radha Krishna, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he had a small Gopal deity. Often while he was traveling, his followers and his disciples, they would carry around these deities of Radha Krishna and of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Vamsidas Babaji, he always carried around the Gopal deity in his hand. And he was often seen speaking to his Gopal deity. In fact, it's described that even when people would come for his darshan and they would ask him questions, he wouldn't speak directly with the individual asking the question. He would often converse just with his Gopal deity. And in this way, he had a very personal relationship with his deities. And one of the main services he liked to perform for his deities was to cook. He was a great cook, and he liked to cook for his deities. And he had a very personal relationship in this way in cooking. Once there was some thieves, and as a Babaji, he didn't have so much, so he only had 2 brass pots to cook out of. And in the night, some thieves came and they stole these pots. So Vamsidas Babaji, being in a very personal relationship with these deities, he said, okay, you have arranged for these pots to be stolen, now you will not eat today. So he went all day without cooking for his deities, which, someone following the normal deity worship standards would be like, that's crazy. And finally, the next day, someone came and they donated 1 pot. So he said, Nitai, you have brought this 1 pot as a donation, so I will cook for you. But Lord Chaitanya, you will have to wait till you bring a pot for donation. Only then will I cook for you. So in this way, he had a very personal relationship with his deities. And he often showed a lot of love and affection for his deities, especially this Gopal deity. This Gopal deity was very important to him. Like I said before, he often heard songs of the previous acharyas when he was going to this temple, and it's said that his favorite song was this Nitai Pada Kamala. And he would often chant and he would often recite this bhajan, which is very nice, and it's very relishing and very pleasing to the ears. So a couple more pastimes is, it isn't like Vamsidas Babaji was some personality that lived thousands and thousands of years ago, but he was actually present in the presence of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And in around 1903, I believe it was, Bhakti Vinod Thakur actually took Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to visit Vamsidas Babaji. And he, revealed that this personality was actually a completely liberated soul. And because as a Babaji, he wasn't acting on the platform of performing the rules and regulations. So from an outward perspective, it was very easy to make offenses to this personality, which is why Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed his disciples not to personally associate so much with Vamsidas Babaji, because he was afraid they would make offenses to his character based off of his actions. However, he would, for some period of time, instruct his disciples to bring firewood for Vamsidas Babaji. This is because, as I mentioned before, Srila Vamsidas Babaji was very fond of cooking for his deities. So the disciples would bring this wood for him to cook, and it would generally happen one of 2 ways, where Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj would show his great appreciation to the disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And other times, he would be like, who the heck do you think you are trying to serve me? And he would grab all the stuff that they brought and just throw it into the river. So in this way, some of his disciples started to develop a very critical attitude of this highly exalted devotee. And in this way, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur chastised them very severely and said, you do not understand the great position of this Vaishnava. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur came on very few occasions, but he came and saw Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj enough that they had a very personal relationship with each other. It's described here in this book. I'll just read a paragraph here real quick. Okay. Babaji Maharaj would refer to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur as Jagannathar Bimala, because Siddhanta Saraswati's childhood name had been Bimala Prasad, the son born as the mercy of Bimala Devi. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati would sometimes visit Babaji Maharaj's kuti in Navadvip town, yet he would remain at some distance and simply offer obeisances. Seeing Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati coming, Babaji Maharaj would exclaim, "Oh, a Manjari has come, so won't Radha also come? She will come, she will come." Jagadish Bhakti Pradipa reported having accompanied Siddhanta Saraswati to Koladvip for the darshan of Vamsidas Babaji shortly before Gaura Purnima in 1914. Although they arrived when Babaji Maharaj had not spoken to anyone for some time and was absorbed in singing to his deities from the Paratana, on seeing Siddhanta Saraswati, he loudly cried, "My Gora's own associate has come." Then Babaji Maharaj respectfully seated Siddhanta Saraswati and resumed singing. After this visit, Siddhanta Saraswati explained at length that Babaji Maharaj was serving Krishna according to Narottam Das Thakur's mood, and that Babaji Maharaj's apparent improper behavior was meant to mislead materialistic people, including putative Vaishnavas, and hence was incomprehensible to such persons. So we can see the amazing character of Vamsidas Babaji, as I've described in brief. And if you want to read more about the amazing, wonderful pastimes of Vamsidas Babaji, we have these books in the ashram and down in the book room. And hopefully, if I have time today, I'll be able to read through the whole book. You know, it's not very long. It's only about 100 pages, so it's not such a hard task to do. We're all reading for minimum an hour every day, so we can at least read some from this book about the amazing pastimes of Vamsidas Babaji. So I guess I'll take any questions now about Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj or Raghunath Thakur, if anybody has any. I know I probably messed up some things, but apologies in advance. Yes, Master.
So, what Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj was listening to the bhajans of Bhakti Vinod Thakur or Narottam Das Thakur?
Narottam Das Thakur. I misspoke.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Guess we can move on to the regularly scheduled Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, titled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan, and we'll be doing text 4, which doesn't have a purport, and we'll also be doing text 5. So, Kakudminaha Avidhanasaha Damitva Svayamvare Nagnijitam Nijitim Uvaha Tat Pagnamanan Api Gridyata Agnan Jagne Akshataha Shastra Brittaha Sva Shastrahi Kakudmino Vidhanaso Damitva Kakudmino Vidhanaso Damitva Svayam Vare Nagnajitim Uvaha Svayam Vare Nagnajitim Uvaha Tad Bhagnamanan Api Gridyato Gnyan Tad Bhagnamanan Api Gridyato Gnyan Jagne Kshata Shastra Brita Svashastrahi Kakudmino Vidhanaso Damitva Svayam Vare Nagnajitim Uvaha Tad Bhagnamanan Api Gridyato Gnyan Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Please chant. Kudmina vidhasasodamitva. Ayam vare nagnajitim uvaha. Tadbhagnamanapi gridyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Kakudmino vidhanasodamitva. Nagnajitim uvaha. Tadbhagnamanapi gridyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Kakudmino vidhanasodamitva. Vare nagnajitim uvaha. Namapi gridyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Kakudmino vidhanasodamitva. Swayam vare nagnajitim uvaha. Tadbhagnamanapi gridyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Kakudmino vidhanasodamitva. Vare nagnajitim uvaha. Tadbhagnamanapi vidyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Kakudmino vidhanasodamitva. Tadbhagnamanapi gridyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Mataji's. Kakudmino vidhanasodamitva. Tvayam vare nagnajitim uvaha. Tadbhagnamanapi gridyato gyan. Jagne kshata shastra brita svashastrahi. Okay. Kakudminaha. Bulls whose noses were not pierced. Avidha. Nasaha. Pierced by the nose. Damitva. Subduing. Svayamvare. In the opening competition to select the bridegroom. Nagnijitim. Princess Nagnijiti. Uvaha. Married. Tad. Bhagnamanan. In that way, all who were disappointed. Api. Even though. Gridyataha. Wanted. Agyanan. The fools. Jagne. Killed and wounded. Akshataha. Without being wounded. Shastra. Britaha. Equipped with all weapons. Sva. Shastrahi. By his own weapons. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By subduing 7 bulls whose noses were not pierced, the Lord achieved the hand of the princess Nagnajiti in the open competition to select her bridegroom. Although the Lord was victorious, his competitors asked the hand of the princess, and thus there was a fight. Well equipped with weapons, the Lord killed or wounded all of them, but he was not hurt himself. Chandan, for the next verse, do I go line by line and we recite, or do I just read it? Okay. Priyam Prabhur Gram Ya Iva Priyaya Vidit Surar Chad Dutarum Yararte Vajya Dravat Tam Saguno Rusan Dahaha Kir Da Mrigo Nun Namayam Vadunam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Just to please his dear wife, the Lord brought back the Parijata tree from heaven, just as an ordinary husband would do. But Indra, the king of heaven, induced by his wives, henpecked as he was, ran after the Lord with full force to fight him. Purport. The Lord once went to the heavenly planet to present an earring to Aditi, the mother of the demigods, and his wife Satyabhama also went with him. There is a special flowering tree called the Parijata tree, which only grows in the heavenly planets, and Satyabhama wanted this tree. Just to please his wife, like an ordinary husband, the Lord brought back the tree, and this enraged Vajri, the controller of the thunderbolt. Indra's wives inspired him to run after the Lord to fight, and Indra, because he was a henpecked husband and also a fool, listened to them and dared to fight with Krishna. He was a fool on this occasion because he forgot that everything belongs to the Lord. There is no fault on the part of the Lord, even though he took away the tree from the heavenly kingdom. But because Indra was henpecked, dominated by his beautiful wives like Sachi, he became a fool, just as all persons who are dominated by their wives are generally foolish. Indra thought that Krishna was a henpecked husband who only by the will of his wife Satyabhama took away the property of heaven, and therefore he thought that Krishna could be punished. He forgot that the Lord is the proprietor of everything and cannot be henpecked. The Lord is fully independent, and by his will only he can have hundreds and thousands of wives like Satyabhama. He was not therefore attached to Satyabhama because she was his beautiful wife, but he was pleased with her devotional service and thus wanted to reciprocate the unalloyed devotion of his devotee. So, by subduing 7 bulls whose noses were not pierced, the Lord achieved the hand of Princess Nagnajiti in the open competition to select her bridegroom. Although the Lord was victorious, his competitors asked the hand of the princess, and thus there was a fight. Well equipped with weapons, the Lord killed or wounded all of them, but he was not hurt himself. Just to please his dear wife, the Lord brought back the Parijata tree from heaven, just as an ordinary husband would do. But Indra, the king of heaven, induced by his wives, henpecked as he was, ran after the Lord with full force to fight him. We have been reading here from the Lord's pastimes out of Vrindavan. We are having Vidura and Uddhava here discussing the different pastimes of the Lord. The previous chapter, we were discussing and hearing about the Lord's wonderful pastimes in Vrindavan. And here in this chapter and the beginning of the next chapter, we will be discussing the Lord's wonderful pastimes outside of Vrindavan with his different associates, with his different devotees. And in the end, Vidura will hear from Uddhava and later leave to visit the ashram of Maitreya Muni and make further inquiries and hear further from him. Here, in these specific verses, we are hearing about different queens. Previously, yesterday in the class by Kalki Prabhu, we heard about the pastime of Krishna and Rukmini, where he came to the similar, as is described here, the marriage ceremony, and it was arranged that Rukmini was going to marry Shishupal, but of course there's all these other kings here wishing for her hand. And similarly, in this case, in the case of Princess Nagnajiti, that there was many kings hoping to win her hand in marriage. Although it was set up by her father that he set up a competition which no one but Krishna could do. And this is described in Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book very elaborately. I'll read a little bit from this pastime here. This is the chapter 58, titled Five Queens Married by Krishna. Okay, I'll read from here. When Satya, which is another name for Nagnajiti, understood that Krishna himself had come to marry her, she was very much pleased that the husband of the goddess of fortune had so kindly come there to accept her. For a long time she had cherished the idea of marrying Krishna, and was following the principles of austerities to obtain her desired husband. Then she began to think, if I have performed any pious activities to the best of my ability, and if I have sincerely thought all along to have Krishna as my husband, then Krishna may be pleased to fulfill my long-cherished desire. She began to offer prayers to Krishna mentally, thinking, I do not know how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be pleased with me. He is the master and lord of everyone, even the goddess of fortune, whose place is next to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and many other demigods of different planets always offer their respectful obeisances unto the Lord. The Lord also sometimes descends to this earth in his different incarnations to fulfill the desire of his devotees. He is so exalted and great that I do not know how to satisfy him. It is also described here by Srila Prabhupada, just making some commentary here. Prabhupada says that the more we render service unto the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master, the more we make advancement on the path of approaching the Lord. We cannot demand any grace or mercy from the Lord because of our service rendered to him. He may accept or not accept our service, but the only means to satisfy the Lord is through the service attitude and nothing else. So it's a very important point that I'll come back to touch on later. And here I'll read through the pastime of how Krishna conquered this seemingly impossible task. So here the king says, Krishna, if you'll kindly bridle the 7 bulls and bring them under control, then undoubtedly you will be selected as the desired husband of my daughter Satya. After hearing the statement, Krishna could understand that the king did not want to break his vow. Thus, in order to fulfill his desire, he tightened his belt and prepared to fight with the bulls. Immediately, he immediately divided himself into 7 Krishnas, and each one of them immediately caught hold of a bull and bridled its nose, thus bringing it under control as if it were a plaything. Krishna's dividing himself into 7 is very significant. It was known to Satya that Krishna had already married many other wives, but still she was attached to Krishna. In order to encourage her, Krishna immediately expanded himself into 7. The purport is that Krishna is one, but he has unlimited forms of expansions. He married many thousands of wives, but this does not mean that while he was with one wife, the others were bereft of his association. Krishna could associate with each and every wife by his expansions. When Krishna brought the bulls under his control, by bridling their noses, their strength and pride were immediately smashed. The name, fame, which the bulls had attained was thus vanquished. When Krishna had the bulls bridled, he pulled them strongly, just as a child pulls a toy wooden bull. Upon seeing the advantage of Krishna, King Nagnajit became very much astonished and immediately with great pleasure brought his daughter Satya before Krishna and handed her over to him. Krishna also immediately accepted Satya as his wife. Then there was a marriage ceremony with great pomp. The queens of King Nagnajit were also very much pleased because their daughter Satya got Krishna as her husband. Since Krishna and the queens were very much pleased on this auspicious occasion, there was a celebration all over the city in honor of the marriage. Everywhere were heard the sounds of conch shells and kettle drums, and various other vibrations of music and song. The learned brahmanas showered their blessings upon the married couple. So that's the pastime there of Krishna being able to subdue these bulls, and this pastime of him accepting Satya as his queen. And then the other pastime described here, which I'll talk about in brief because we don't have so much time, is this instance where Krishna goes with Satyabhama to the kingdom of Indra, and he takes this Parijata tree. So this is in the next chapter, the deliverance of the demon Bhauma Asura. This takes place after Krishna defeats this demon. After this incident, Lord Krishna and Satyabhama entered Amaravati, the capital city of the heavenly planets, and they immediately entered the palace of King Indra and his wife Sachi Devi, who welcomed them. Krishna then presented Indra with the earrings of Aditi. When Krishna and Satyabhama were returning from the capital city of Indra, Satyabhama remembered Krishna's promise to give her a Parijata tree. Taking the opportunity of having come to the heavenly kingdom, she uprooted a Parijata tree and placed it on the back of Garuda. Once, Narada had taken a Parijata flower and presented it to Krishna's senior wife, Sri Rukmini Devi. On account of this, Satyabhama had developed an inferiority complex. She also wanted such a flower from Krishna. Krishna could understand the competitive womanly nature of his co-wives, and he had smiled. He immediately asked Satyabhama, "Why are you asking only for one flower? I would like to give you a whole tree of Parijata flowers." Actually, Krishna had purposely taken his wife Satyabhama with him, so that she could collect the Parijata with her own hand. But the denizens of the heavenly planets, including Indra, were very irritated. Without their permission, Satyabhama had uprooted a Parijata tree, which is not to be found on the earth planet. Indra, along with other demigods, offered opposition to Krishna and Satyabhama for taking away the tree. But in order to please his favorite wife, Satyabhama, Krishna became determined and adamant. So there was a fight between the demigods and Krishna. As usual, Krishna came out victorious, and he triumphantly brought the Parijata tree, chosen by his wife, to the earth planet, to Dvaraka. After this, the tree was installed in the palace garden of Satyabhama. On account of this extraordinary tree, the garden house of Satyabhama became extraordinarily beautiful. As the Parijata tree came down to the earthly planet, the fragrance of its flowers also came down, and the celestial drones migrated to this earth in search of their fragrance like honey. So one important point that Prabhupada makes here, also in this pastime here in the Krishna book, that Prabhupada says, that is the way of dealings of materialistic men. Materialistic men are always interested in their own profit. For this purpose, they can offer any kind of respect to anyone, but when their personal interest is over, they are no longer friends. This selfish nature is found not only among the richer class of men on this planet, but even personalities like Indra and other demigods. Too much wealth makes a man selfish. A selfish man is not prepared to take the Krishna consciousness and is condemned by great devotees like Shukadeva Goswami. In other words, possession of many worldly riches is a disqualification for advancement in Krishna consciousness. So the pastimes here of Krishna with his queens, and also, conveniently, the wonderful pastimes of Raghunananda Thakur and Srila Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj very much resonate with the point here that Prabhupada makes at the end of this purport, which is very much the essence of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to convey here. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that the Lord is fully independent, and by his will only he can have hundreds and thousands of wives like Satyabhama. He was not therefore attached to Satyabhama because she was his beautiful wife, but he was pleased with her devotional service and thus wanted to reciprocate the unalloyed devotion of his devotee. So this is a very important point for us to understand as aspiring devotees in Krishna consciousness, that it isn't based off of our mundane qualification or off of any particular item that we might offer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that the Lord reciprocates with us. It isn't that if I give Krishna $1 million and you only give him $100, then he'll reciprocate with you less than he reciprocates with me. But it's actually this mood of devotional service and this unalloyed devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that we see that Krishna actually reciprocates with. Because it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the essence of Krishna is his sweetness. And that Krishna, he reciprocates with his devotees in a very sweet and loving way. And we can see this described in multiple different instances and multiple different pastimes that we have described recently. For example, there was the instance of Vidura and Duryodhan, where Krishna was invited to the kingdom and to the palace of Duryodhana. And he was received very, very nicely with lots of riches, with lots of wealth, with elaborate procedures. And from an external perspective, he was treated as he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna could tell that inside of Duryodhana's heart, he was developing this mood of envy of Krishna, of anger towards Krishna's devotees. And he was doing this just as a formality. He wasn't actually doing it out of devotion, right? We can see we have so many rules and regulations that we have to follow, especially when it comes to things like deity worship. And when one just does them just out of formality and out of just following the process without this mood of devotion, then Krishna doesn't actually accept it. We can see, as was described in these different pastimes, that just because you perform a particular action doesn't mean that Krishna is obliged to accept it. Krishna has the choice, and he chooses to reciprocate with his loving devotees, as was shown in the case of Vidura, where compared to the other kings of the Kuru dynasty, he was not situated in as much opulence. Sure, he still had a nice residence and a nice place to stay, but compared to the elaborate reception of Duryodhana, Vidura couldn't actually present so much. In fact, it's described that Vidura's wife was so ecstatic upon having Krishna enter her home, right? We can't even imagine, like you just open the door and Krishna's right there, and you're actually getting the chance to serve him. She was so ecstatic that she was offering Krishna bananas, right? Because that's all they had. But generally, when you offer someone a banana, you offer them the edible part of the banana, the fruit. And you give them the fruit, and you take away the skin. But in her feelings of ecstasy and so much love for Krishna, she was doing the opposite, where she was giving Krishna the peel of the banana and then throwing out the actual fruit. And this is because Krishna is also known as Bhavagrahi Janardana, where he accepts the essence of the offerings of his devotees. It doesn't matter the external or the material value of the offering, but Krishna accepts the essence. He accepts the devotion of the devotees, and he accepts this mood of service, and he accepts this desire of the devotees to receive him. Another part of this name is that even though we might be performing something improperly, right, like Prabhupada first said to his Western disciples when they asked him about deity worship, they asked him because at first they would just walk up to the deities, they would offer some kind of candle, everybody got to do it, and they were like, okay, this is nice, but there must be some formal process. So they inquired from Srila Prabhupada about this process. And Prabhupada said, if I told you all of the rules and regulations, you would faint. Because really, in the process of deity worship and in devotional service in general, there are so many rules and regulations to follow. And speaking, at least for myself, as a very neophyte devotee, it's very hard to follow these rules and regulations and follow these processes. But Krishna can see that if the devotee is trying and the devotee is making a sincere effort to serve him without any external motivation, simply for the desire to serve him, then Krishna will accept this offering. Right? We saw in the case of Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, from an external point of view, he wasn't following the principles of this deity worship. Because generally there's fixed times where you do the offering, you do achman, you do a particular process. But out of his ecstatic, loving relationship with his deities, he was able to act on the completely spontaneous platform, and Krishna really reciprocated with him. He was able to speak and talk to his deities personally. Right? There is actually this quote in this wonderful book, Vamsidas Babaji, where often in my spiritual master's books, he inserts a lot of quotes and experiences by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada didn't mention Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj so much, but he makes one important point at a deity installation in Los Angeles, where he says, if you think this deity is a brass-made idol, then it will remain a brass-made idol to you forever. But if you elevate yourself to a higher platform of Krishna consciousness, then Krishna, this Krishna, will talk to you. This Krishna will talk with you. There is a Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. He was talking with his deity. So we can see this is the practical process that one can come to. And Srila Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, by his action, he wasn't showing us to follow in his footsteps by trying just to replicate what he's doing and just being some copycat and being some sort of follower, because he's a completely liberated and a completely elevated soul. So he can act on this platform, but it is recommended for us to follow the rules and the regulations in order to come up to this platform. But by his example, he's showing us the level of relationship that one can actually have. Srila Prabhupada is explaining here that one can actually talk and have a personal relationship with the deity. However, if you just think it's some statue on the altar, or like we have, you think it's just some picture, it's just some offering machine that you just, you get your offering plate, you put it before the deity, you ring the bell and you chant some things and you wait for 15 minutes and then ding ding, it's done, it's offered, right? This isn't actually the process. But when one actually sees that this is non-different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead and wants to serve him, then he will reciprocate with him as thus. As we were discussing earlier about the case of Raghunananda Thakur, where he had such conviction and he went before the deity with such love and such perseverance that he would not leave until the deity ate everything that was on the plate, right? And we can see that the Lord actually reciprocates with his devotees in this way. And he is able to do this because these devotees have no material desires. Prabhupada says that as long as we have material desires, we cannot have pure love for Krishna. And this is a very important point, as we can see here in the case of Indra, where Indra, he had these wonderful parijata trees, and, out of, it's described here that because he was a henpecked husband and also a fool, he listened to them and dared to fight with Krishna. Because he was trying to please his wives out of some sort of material relationship with them, he thought that he could defeat Krishna. And as I was just reading here, that this is the relationship that these materialistic men have, that they think that either Krishna is just some ordinary human being, or that because Krishna had hundreds and thousands of wives, then I can also have hundreds and thousands of wives, and I can satisfy them completely. But we can see here in the case of Lord Indra is that he was not able to satisfy his wives completely, and that they were asking him, to get this tree back from Krishna, and it's described that, Prabhupada says, as usual, Krishna came out victorious. So these unscrupulous personalities who are trying to imitate and to mimic Krishna and are eventually, because of their position of wanting to enjoy separately from Krishna, are engaging in all these actions to try and serve separately from Krishna. But we can see just by one having such love with Krishna, Krishna reciprocates and actually has a relationship, right? It's described that, right, it wasn't because Satyabhama was so beautiful, or that she was one of Krishna's first queens, or because she did some action for him, so he felt obliged to do it. But it was because of this loving service to Krishna that Krishna had such a desire to reciprocate with him, right? And we might be thinking, at least I was, especially when Kalki Prabhu yesterday was describing how Rukmini felt about Krishna, and how, when she saw Krishna for the first time, she was like, that's definitely Krishna, that's who I've been meditating on for my whole life. And even from a young age, she had such an intense desire to be Krishna's husband, or Krishna's wife, to have Krishna as her husband, right? And I was kind of thinking like, this is bewildering, because how can someone like us come up to such a high level of devotion, right? But this is actually answered by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter. As I'll read it, Krishna first describes in Bhagavad Gita 9:26 that patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyuparhitam ashnami pratyatatmanaha. That if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. So these are very simple things. It's described that these are items that anybody and everybody can acquire. Anybody can go and pick some flour. Anybody can go and get some leaf. Anybody can acquire some little bit of fruit or some water, and they can present it and they can offer this before the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna makes the particular point that it's with this love and devotion that one has to offer these items with, then I will accept it. One point that my spiritual master makes in accordance with giving classes on these verses is that Krishna also describes here what he wants offered to him, right? Because if you love somebody and you want to have a relationship with them, naturally you offer them things that they like, right? It's described that if somebody comes to your house after a long journey and asks, "Kind sir, can you please get me some water? I'm very thirsty." And you think, this person's asking for water, but actually I know better. I'm going to go boil some hot milk and I'm going to give it to them. And you offer this to the person and they're like, "I asked you for water and you're bringing me this." Like, okay, like this is nice, you're bringing this to me, but like, can I have some water? So in the beginning, when we don't understand completely all the rules and regulations, we might, in this mood, as often a child does with his parents, he'll take a bite out of some fruit and he'll offer it back to the father. And because the father's like, "Oh, this is cute, this is nice," he accepts it. But later on, when the child grows older and he develops more of an intimate relationship with his parents and actually understands who they are, what they like, what they don't like, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, he reciprocates with them on a level that which they like. So here Krishna is describing that he likes being offered a leaf, a flower, a fruit, water, and all these very simple things that anybody can bring forward for offering. And my spiritual master makes the point that it isn't that Krishna says, "Bring me meat, bring me a hamburger, bring me some fish, and then I'll accept it." But Krishna specifically makes the point that he accepts leaf, flower, fruit, and water. And it's, revealed to us by our acharyas various different foodstuffs that Krishna enjoys. And, coming up, we have this Janmashtami festival, and we also have the appearance day of Srila Prabhupada. So we'll be celebrating all these different occasions, not by just thinking like, I want to make some like French toast and I'll just get it from the store. And because, I have to only eat prasadam, right? I'll just say Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, and Krishna will accept it and then I'll be able to honor it. But one should actually put their offerings before the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a mood that which he likes, right? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described that if one eats food cooked by non-devotees, then their brain becomes very dull. It becomes just like stool. And when one's brain is just like stool, one cannot develop love for Krishna. So we can't just, because, something might follow under these certain categories of, you're like, well, you said no meat, fish, or eggs, and this is bread, it's not under that category. But we can see it wasn't cooked, it wasn't presented in the mood of love and devotion. So how can Krishna accept it? He describes various different things, but he specifies that if it was made in the mood of love and devotion, then he will accept it. And Krishna further elaborates what this love and devotion is in the next verse, where he says, "Yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat jujoshi dadashi yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam." That, O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you perform, should be done as an offering to me. So we should be able to dedicate our whole lives and every part of our being in this mood of I'm doing this to serve Krishna. And then only Krishna will accept it as an offering. Only then will we be able to properly serve Krishna, right? If you just buy something that's cooked at the store, this wasn't made by this mood of I'm doing everything for Krishna. This is someone's business, this is someone's job. They're just doing it to make a living and to exploit people. So by actually, it's described also by my spiritual master that the best way to cook for Krishna is actually to start the process off by growing your own food. Because then when you're obtaining the seeds, when you're sowing the seeds, when you're watching the plant grow, when you're picking the vegetables, when you're taking care of the garden, your only thought is you're doing this with devotion to Krishna. And that's exactly what Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita as the way which he accepts things, in which everything and any action that you do, you only do it in the mood of, I'm doing this to serve Krishna. So in this way, we will actually be able to have reciprocation. And it isn't just some imaginary thing. Like we've been hearing in these pastimes of Raghunananda Thakur and Srila Vamsidas Babaji, that the Lord will actually reciprocate with us. And we can actually see the Lord face to face and have practical experience of this ecstatic relationship that we can develop with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's this principle of devotional service that we have to cultivate, and it's this principle of devotional service that we have to develop. One last point that I'll make, there's another verse from the Bhagavad Gita which describes, if that wasn't enough to encourage people to only take Krishna Prasad, there is this verse which is Yagnya Shishta Shina Shanto Muchyante Sarva Kilbishahi Bhujante Tetvagam Papam Ye Pachantyat Makaranat. That it's described that the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first in sacrifice. Those who prepare food for personal sense gratification verily eat only sin. So we are all, at least I hope so, all of us are trying to come to this elevated platform and are trying to become free from these sinful reactions and these sinful activities. So by offering food which is accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in sacrifice, then we will actually be able to become free from all this karma and from all these things that bind us in the material world. And it's actually amazing that simply by the tongue one can make so much practical advancement. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna and only honoring Krishna Prasad, one can make so much practical advancement in their spiritual life. So, it's also said that this food has to be offered in yagya. So the yagya that is recommended for this age is the Sankirtan yagya. So by performing Sankirtan yagya, by offering our food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by offering what he likes, and by making it with love and devotion, then Krishna will be pleased, and then Krishna will reciprocate with us. And like I said, the other part of this is we have to have our Varnashram farm communities, because otherwise, how can we provide food for all the devotees? Because then, this way, Krishna will be most pleased. Krishna will be most pleased if we're simply distributing the books of Srila Prabhupada, growing our own food and living off the land, living simply, following the rules and regulations, and offering our food and offering everything that we have, as Krishna describes, with this mood of love and devotion, then Krishna will be pleased, and Krishna will reciprocate with us like he does with Srila Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj and Srila Raghunananda Thakur. So I went a little long because I was talking earlier about the great personalities whose disappearance it is, so I apologize for that. But if there are any corrections, comments, or questions, I'll take those now. Anyone have anything? Chananacharya Prabhu?
I was just thinking, a lot of the emphasis Prabhupada puts on in this purport is in this aspect of this henpecked husband, and it's quite amazing how he analyzes that. Because it's like, Indra is looking at Krishna as a henpecked husband, and he's thinking Krishna is such a fool that he dares to come and steal my, whole tree. And then whereas Prabhupada is saying, well, Indra is actually a fool. He's such a fool, he can't see that Krishna is independent, fully independent, and that he himself is a henpecked husband, and then because he has that quality, he sees Krishna as the same. Right. And it's obviously he's avajananti mam mudha. He's seeing Krishna as an ordinary living entity who is attached to his husband. And what's amazing is and it goes on to Prabhupada to say that he was a fool, and at the end he says one should satisfy the Lord by devotion. And it's quite amazing in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Narada Muni says something really amazing in the ideal family life. He says that one so seriously considers one wife to be his own that he sometimes kills himself for her or kills others, including even his parents or his spiritual master or teacher. Therefore, if one can give up his attachment to such a wife, he conquers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never conquered by anyone. So in this purport, like there's a lot of emphasis on, at the end he's emphasizing one's devotion, and then Narada Muni says, well, this is a part of it, not to be attached to one's wife. Now Krishna is not attached to his wife because he's fully independent, but we're not like that. So then Narada Muni gives one advice on how to do that also. Mm-hmm. He said, through proper deliberation, one should give up attraction to his wife's body, because that body will ultimately be transformed into small insects, stool, or ashes. What is the value of this insignificant body? How much greater is the Supreme Being who is all-pervading like the sky? So emphasis being given that the wife is there and one must perform his duty just like Krishna is doing, but one is not independent like Krishna. But he has the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to see through that, and by giving up that attachment to one's wife, he can actually completely please the Supreme Personality of God. And Prabhupada writes like that. Mm-hmm. He says, every husband is too attached to his wife. Therefore, to give up one's connection with his wife is extremely difficult. But if one can somehow or other give it up for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the Lord himself, although not able to be conquered by anyone, comes very much under the control of the devotee. And if the Lord is pleased with the devotee, what is there that is unobtainable? Why should one not give up his affection for his wife and children and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What is the loss of anything material? Where is the loss of anything material? Household life means attachment for one's wife, whereas sannyas means detachment from one's wife and attachment to Krishna. It's practical realization of Srila Prabhupada also. I mean, not that he's ever attached, but he exhibited that pastime, and the purport speaks so clearly. And you see Prabhupada's life, he gave that up in what Krishna gave to him.
Yeah, Krishna gave him the whole world.
Yeah. So the emphasis I see, at least the way, like in this purport, seems that idea of giving up material things, and devoting oneself to Krishna. And that's what Krishna is pleased by with his wife, that she's completely devoted to him. And that's like the platform of which that relationship, and therefore, otherwise there's also cases in which Krishna is controlled by the gopis, but then he just decides to leave. Yep. And I think you are reading that one of the wives was becoming a little more proud of it, but he doesn't leave in this instance because they're his wife. He continues to perform his duty, whereas with his girlfriends, he's just you know what, I'm out. So anyways, it's interesting, how can you understand Krishna's pastimes? But it's just some things that were really, I'm reading this section in the Bhagavatam, that's why it's fresh in my mind, so it's quite amazing.
Yeah, there's that pastime actually when me and Giri Prabhu, we were recently on traveling Sankirtan, and every night we were reading from Krishna book, and what we would do is we would, ask Siri, we would be like, hey, can you read, or can you give me like a random number between like 1 and 90, and that way we would read like a chapter of Krishna book every single night. And by Krishna's arrangement, I guess there was that pastime of Sudama Brahmana, where he's a very poor Brahmana, and he goes before Krishna with only this small bundle of this chipped rice, which is described as a food that's actually for low class people. And he's so ashamed the whole time that he's there that he doesn't even want to present it before the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he understand that Krishna here he's in the position of a great king, and he has so many people cooking so nicely for him every single day, and all he has is this like plain like chipped rice, which is for low class people. But Krishna, he actually takes it from him and is like, oh, I see you've brought me some offering, and he takes but one bite, and then he gets stopped like, don't you know that like the opulence that you'll award such a person just by honoring more than one morsel? And the Brahmana Sudama, he goes back, and back at his house has been transformed into a whole palace. So just because of his devotion for wanting to serve Krishna, even though he gave Krishna very little, Krishna gave him so much facility and so much opulence. And the amazing part that's described in that pastime actually that I hadn't heard is that Prabhupada says that when Sudama saw all this opulence, his thought wasn't, oh, Krishna has facilitated this for my enjoyment. But he's like, oh, now I have so much facility to serve Krishna now. And now I'll actually be able to properly reciprocate with and properly serve him. So yeah, that's the mood we should have. I was going to talk more about that, but I kind of like ran out of time. Sorry about that. Tapas Prabhu? Prabhu, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Mr. Prabhu, I was reflecting upon this. Indra, he's a great personality, there's no doubt about that. He had a previous experience with Lord Krishna because when he was a child, Lord Krishna was a child. He was humbled by Lord Krishna when he poured rain over Govardhan, over Vrindavan, and Lord Krishna protected Vrindavan by lifting Govardhan hill. So he was humbled by Lord Krishna, and then again, he has this, he had to fight with Krishna just because he didn't want him to take the Parijat flower. So what does it reflect? Does it reflect that we are forgetful? We forget, we have to remind it again and again that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the master of everything.
Yeah, so it was so nice that he had to do it twice, right? So he had his first experience with Krishna, and he was humbled in such a way. But we can see he was puffed up by so much material opulence, right? It's also described, I was just reading, how Indra being so puffed up with his position, I was just reading this in the 6th canto, that he offends his guru, who comes before him, and he fails to honor him. He fails to show him any sort of respect. So this is, like you were saying, it's reflected of our own ability that we're, as conditioned souls in the material world, at least for myself, I don't know about everyone else here, but we're always prone to falling under illusion. That even though we might have some, and we practically see this, that people come, they understand the philosophy, they come, they chant for some time, but then they go away and they try their hardest to forget Krishna. Generally it's because they want to enjoy some sort of material opulence. So we can see this is a similar case with Indra, that, he was humbled and he offered such nice prayers actually, but then he again becomes so puffed up with this material opulence that again he gets humbled by Krishna because he's trying to enjoy separately from Krishna. So we can take this as an example that, we should never become puffed up with material opulence, and we should always do things like it's being described here in this mood of humble devotional service. Mataji, any questions? Lekashwanti Mataji?
I just had a comment. When I was reading Sri Vamsidas Babaji, it wasn't until I read this yesterday that I was able to get more understanding of just how exalted Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj's deity service was. So I just wanted to read it. It's 11:27:15. One should worship me, and this is Krishna talking about the prescriptions for deity worship. One should worship me in my deity form by offering the most excellent paraphernalia, but a devotee completely freed from material desire may worship me with whatever he is able to obtain, and may even worship me within his heart with mental paraphernalia. Purport. A devotee still troubled by material desire tends to see the world as an object of sense gratification. Such a neophyte devotee may misunderstand the Lord's supreme position and may even consider the Lord an object of his own enjoyment. Hence, the neophyte must offer opulent paraphernalia to the deity so that he may constantly remember that the deity is the supreme enjoyer and that he, the neophyte, is simply the worshipper and is actually meant for the deity's pleasure. In contrast, an advanced devotee, one fixed in Krishna consciousness, never forgets that the Supreme Lord is the actual enjoyer and controller of everything. The pure devotee offers his unalloyed love to the personality of Godhead, along with whatever paraphernalia is easily obtained. A Krishna-conscious devotee does not waver in his devotion to Lord Krishna, and even with the simplest offering, he completely satisfies the personality of Godhead.
Yeah, it's amazing that Vamsidas Babaji, at the time where, most people who called themselves Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they were, doing very unscrupulous things when also claiming themselves to be great devotees. And it's revealed to us by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that the greatness and the great status of Vamsidas Babaji. Right? And one last point, I guess, about Babaji's, I think Mahotsav Prabhu was making this point, that they don't follow the rules and regulations, and they don't really, from an external point of view, they might seem like, crazy people. But one thing that they always follow is they don't have illicit sex. That's one rule that even an actual Babaji follows. So one can see by the character of Vamsidas Babaji that he was actually a real Babaji. Yeah. No connection with woman. So, I believe we're out of time. Tabas, you can ask me later. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Sri Raghuvananda Thakur ki jai.